Some wrestlers can tear the house down every night. Others can make you care with just a few words. So which one really matters more? In wrestling, there's always been this debate. Promos or work rate. But if you could only choose one, which one makes you more of a star? You can be the best worker in the world, but if nobody cares about you, does it even matter? You can't talk your way through a bad match, but at the same time, you can't wrestle your way out of obscurity. So, which one is really more important? Today, I'm discussing and debating promos versus work rate. Which one is really more important? My name is the villain, Marty Skrull. I've been a professional wrestler now for over 20 years, competing all over the world. This is part of my YouTube series where I discuss all things pro wrestling. So please do me a favor, hit the like button and subscribe. For many years, it felt like the business was really built on this idea of promos and talking the fans and the audience into the building. And I would say in the past maybe 10, 20 years, the focus has shifted more into the work rate. Now, more than ever, there is a huge emphasis on the work rate. But which one really creates stars? On one side, you have work rate, which makes people respect you. And then on the other hand, you have promos, which I believe make people remember you. So let's start by talking about work rate, because I do believe there are a lot of misconceptions about what work rate might mean. I think a lot of fans may think, I'm not trying to insult anyone's intelligence right now, but just going on how I feel, I think a lot of fans think that work rate is about how many moves you can perform and execute in a certain sequence of events, if that makes sense. Even though that may be partly true, to me as a wrestler, it's less about the move execution and it's more about the pacing, the timing, the believability, the physical emotion, the story that you can tell within the match. Though I really do think that work rate is really hard to define, right? How do you exactly define that? Because you'll hear people all the time say that Hulk Hogan, for example, wasn't a great worker or didn't have great work rate. And it's like, okay, maybe he didn't have the most exciting matches. Actually, no, I take that back because then you go back and watch those matches and he got the largest reaction out of anyone on the whole entire show. And it's like, so how exactly do we define this? Is it about how good you can move around the ring, or is it about how good a story you can tell, or is it about how much you can engage the audience? It's really hard to kind of put your finger on it exactly. But I can tell you this, it definitely isn't about how many moves you can perform and execute. When I think of great workers, I think of guys like Terry Funk, Roddy Piper, Ric Flair, Bret the Hitman Hart, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and all those guys, they all had about 3 or 4 moves each, okay? It's definitely not about the moves, but they had great, exciting, believable matches. And this, to me, is what work rate is really about. The Ultimate Warrior, on the other hand, again, I don't want to say that he's not a good worker. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you would say, no, he wasn't. But at the same time, it's kind of like, well, he did get the audience on their feet and he got them to be unglued and lose themselves within the magic of his matches and his storytelling. So even as a wrestler for over 20 years, it's really hard for me to define what work rate actually is. So you guys, let me ask you, what do you think work rate means? I mean, to be called a good worker, that is like a badge of honor. And good workers will have the respect of the boys, not just the boys, but the fans as well. And I feel like it is something that is very important. High work rate wrestlers often carry the show and keep standards high. It keeps it exciting. It keeps it moving. It keeps it evolving. And of course, great matches can hook new fans if it's done right and done with emotion. So what are the drawbacks for work rate? I'll say this, work rate alone doesn't create a connection or a story. Often, fans will forget great matches if there's no emotional hook. It can often lead to burnout or sameness. If everyone's chasing a 5-star match, then we kind of lose that connection. At the same time, great in ring work earns credibility and respect from peers and fans alike. It can build an emotional payoff if the story is already there. Workrate is like the engine that drives the performance. I think about the guys that I've mentioned, like the Bret Harts and the Ric Flairs, and then other guys like Shawn Michaels, how they were able to create a story within their ring work, okay? No one's doubting that those guys are great, great wrestlers. But also, if those guys didn't have the character down, if they didn't have the promo, would they have the same effect? So let's talk about promos. To me, the promo is about making the people care before you've even stepped into the ring. This is how you sell the match, okay? End of the day, we need this to make people intrigued. Without it, without the build, without the story, it's just two guys pretending to fight each other. Okay, I think about UFC and how they do their build up packages before the matches. If I said to you, hey, two guys that you don't know are going to fight each other, are you interested in watching? You'd probably be like, no, but then I'll show you one of these video packages and you get to know each wrestler and their stories and their motives. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, actually, I'm pretty into this. I want to see who wins now. It gets you emotionally invested. And it's the same thing for professional wrestling because the promos build anticipation, they build emotion, they build identity, they build intriguement, they make moments memorable. Fans can quote them. Fans quote promos, not necessarily match sequences. And the truth is, great talkers can make the most average wrestler a huge superstar. And maybe you want to use guys like Hulk Hogan or the Ultimate Warrior for that. Like I said, in the ring, were they the best wrestlers? Maybe not, but they could talk people into the building and they could put asses in seats. I like to look at it like this. Moves can impress the eyes, but words can connect with the soul. A 5-star match might trend for a day, a week, but a promo that can last with someone forever. So, what are some of the drawbacks to promos? Well, if you don't have the in-ring ability to back it up, then the promo probably isn't going to hit like you might think it does. If you're doing a promo where you're telling everyone that you're the best wrestler in the world and you're far from that, then yeah, it's not really going to connect. And then in a more modern day age, or the last maybe 10, 20 years, the over scripted promos, I think, can actually maybe do more damage to a performer than help, because ultimately I think the audience can tell when someone's not being real, when someone's not being authentic. And a promo, it's got to be real. The people have got to believe. They've got to believe in what the performer is saying to buy it. So when they're over scripted, when they're saying things that aren't in their words, it's really difficult for the audience to connect. And if they think someone is a phony, they're probably not really interested in watching them perform. They're probably not interested in buying a ticket or a pay-per-view to watch them wrestle. So I think the golden truth is wrestling works best when both sides connect. Great storytelling needs emotional investment, which is the promo, and the payoff, which is the work rate. It's kind of like the promo is the advertisement, right? It's advertising the product that you're going to buy. Because you can have the best product in the world, but if it's not advertised and branded correctly, no one's going to buy it. At the same time, you can have amazing advertising and amazing branding, and someone buys the product, but then if the product sucks, then they're not going to buy it again. And word of mouth gets around, and they'll say, hey, yeah, this product was no good. Don't buy that. So realistically, you need both. The promo sells the ticket, and then the work rate delivers the show. And I think the greatest stars of all time, they learn how to master both. Okay? What would Stone Cold Steve Austin be without the Austin 316 promo? What would The Rock be without his mic work, right? There's so many great examples. And you could even look at someone like a Bret Hart and say, well, he wasn't the greatest mic guy. I actually strongly disagree with that. I thought Bret Hart was a very believable and great promo guy. But yeah, the biggest stars in history, they tend to be masters at both. And you think about the historical shift, right? Back in the day, promos were king. The business was really, really built up on the promos, and the match itself, it it was less about how great the work rate was. It was more about the story, okay? The audience wasn't watching the match thinking, oh, I hope they have a great match. They were watching, hoping that their hero or the babyface was going to win. That's all that mattered to them. When I was a kid watching wrestling, I didn't care how good of a match it was. Maybe subconsciously I was, but when I watched Stone Cold Steve Austin or Bret Hart as a kid, I just wanted them to win. To me, a great match was when they won, right? I didn't care if it was 5 minutes or 20 minutes. To me, I just wanted to see the hero prevail. Fast forward to 2025, and there's just such an emphasis now on the work rate, right? It feels like everyone is trying to have a 5-star match. And again, we need to define what a 5-star match is. Maybe that's a video for another day. Let me know in the comments if you would be interested. But now it does seem like the focus really has shifted into, okay, I care less about who wins and loses and more about if they have a great match. And here's the thing, there's a lot of contributing factors that go into having a great match. Often, maybe you're not booked to have a great match, right? Maybe you're only given 6 minutes and it's a cold match, right? And there's no story behind it. How are you going to have a great match? But you can do great for what you've been given, right? If you've just been given 6 minutes and it's a cold match, you don't need to go out there and try and do WrestleMania. You don't need to go out there and try and show them everything you've got. You can just give them a great, perfect 6-minute match. You try and tell a little story amongst those 6 minutes and do the business that you've been given. And I do wonder if this attitude of everyone trying to have such a great match all the time, if it's actually doing more damage to the business than it is doing good. It feels like there are great matches all the time now. Every week, there's so much wrestling on TV and there's so many great matches because everyone's trying to have them and it's being booked that way. How many great promos do we see? Do we see a great promo every single week? That's not to say that there aren't great promo guys out there today, because there absolutely is. But I would suggest to wrestlers, and especially new wrestlers getting into the business, because there is such a focus on the work rate, I really think to be able to stand out in this day and age, working on your promo would be my number one priority. I think about myself. For a long time, I was wrestling before I came up with the villain character. And I don't know where I'd be today without the villain gimmick. I'll be honest with you, okay? Because I always felt like I was pretty good in the ring. But when I came up with a villain character, that pulled everything together. When I knew what my character was, that made promos so much easier for me. Before, promos are really difficult because I didn't know what my character's I didn't know what my character was really. I didn't know what his motives was or were. I didn't know what he would say or how he would act in certain situations. But as soon as I defined all of that, as soon as I came up with that concept, the villain, it was like, oh, it's like a light bulb went off in my head. And it just made everything so much easier. And I think without that villain character and without introducing that gimmick to the people, which I did through vignettes and videos and promos, I don't know if people would have really cared about me at all if I was just a wrestler. To me, the business has swung too far one way, and I think it's a good idea to bring back more balance. The combination of good work rate and being able to back it up on the mic. I'd say work rate gets you applause, but ultimately promos get you over. And work rate can build moments, but promos build legacies. So yes, both promos and work rate are very important. But if I had to pick one, I think you know what I'm going to say. I'm going to have to go with the promo, okay? Because without that emotional connection with the audience, there really isn't anything. Yes, you need to be able to back it up in the ring now, especially in 2025. But yeah, the promos really, that's what makes the wrestler. That's what creates stars. That's the stuff that the fans truly remember. And it's most likely why someone like a Hulk Hogan or the Ultimate Warrior drew more money than, say, someone like an exceptional ring worker like Dean Malenko, who, no hate on Dean Malenko, he's actually one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I'm a wrestling nerd, though, so of course, and I'm sure he would tell you himself. Those guys, they had the character down, they had the promo, they could sell the tickets. He could get the job done in the ring, but they could put the people, the butts in the seats in the first place. So ultimately, I think promos are more important than work rate. What would you guys say? Which one do you prefer? Which one is more important to you? And maybe I'm asking the wrong question. Maybe I shouldn't be asking which one matters more, promos or work rate. Maybe, just maybe, the real truth is that the magic happens when the two finally work together. But of course, this is just what I think. What do you guys think? I would love to know your opinions on this video and this discussion. Let me know in the comments. And guys, until next time, whoop whoop.